Hello everyone, welcome back. Who fancies a trip down memory lane? Um, I can remember these coins being around in the 70s when I was a kid, but I'm going to go back even further. We're talking about the florin, the 2 shillings. Now, they first came out in 1837 when Victoria first came to the throne. So what I'm going to do is go through each reverse and give you a quick look at that, a quick look at the obverse as well, and then move on to the next. Now, there were quite a few. I think between 1837 and 1967, there must have been 8 or 9 different variations. So I don't want to drag it out too long. Let's just get stuck in and whiz through them quick. So, first one, 1837 to 1887, bears the profile of Queen Victoria in what we now call the Gothic look. So if you look at the writing on there, it's all oldie worldy style. And down the right hand side on the obverse, you've got the date all in Latin, or I should say Roman Latin, oldie worldy. And on the reverse, you've got the 4 shields from the royal flag with 1 florin and 1/10 of a pound. Now, this particular coin, this was in 92.5% silver. The obverse was by William Wyon and the reverse was by William Dice. When it comes to any mintages for these, what I'll do, I've got a little booklet that I'll just put in front of the camera near the end. You can have a quick look at those and you can see the mintages for each year. It's a booklet that I covered in a video a few days ago, so maybe have a quick look back at that one and it might be of interest to yourselves. Moving on to the next period, you're talking 1887 to 1892. That was the Jubilee period. So you've got Victoria there with her Jubilee profile. That was designed by Joseph Edgar Bohm, and the reverse was Leonard Charles Wyon. As you can see on the reverse, the style's still there. You've still got your 4 flags and your scepters, and a little bit of Latin thrown in for good measure. And then come 1893, passing of Prince Albert, you've got the mourning profile. Now that went on then till 1901 on the passing of the Queen. This design was done by Thomas Brock, and the reverse, which was a completely different look, was by Edward John Poynter. Again, 92.5% silver. And this time, if you look, you can see it says 1 florin and 2 shillings, as well as the date. But this time it's only got the 3 panels from the flag, that of England, Scotland and Ireland, because Wales is always deemed a part of England when it came to these sorts of things. On the inside, if you can just make it out, you've got the garter from the Order of the Garter. Moving on, you've got Edward VII. So his was 1902 to 1910. His profile is George William de Saulles. Now, George William de Saulles did both the obverse and the reverse. And the reverse for Edward VII was a complete change of tack. It now shows a picture of Britannia holding her scepter and her shield, or sorry, her trident, I should say, and her shield. Keeps the saying of 1 florin, and it's got 2 shillings as well as the date. So that was a complete change to previous. Again, 92.5% silver. George V came to the throne in 1911. This is his famous profile that was used throughout his reign through to 1936 by Bertram McKennell. The obverse on the earlier coins through to 1926 are a modified version of the Leonard Wyon design. So the one that we had for Victoria for the Jubilee period, this is a variation on a theme. Again, still 92.5% silver, but that changed in 1920. So although the coins were identical from 1919 to 1920, 1920 the silver content went down to 50%. And then you've got 1928 to 1936, change again on the back, but this time the reverse is by George Kruger Gray, retaining the 50% silver. But now it just says 1 florin. It's lost the 2 shillings aspect. We skip Edward because he wasn't around long enough. Straight on to George VI. So 1937 to 1948, Thomas Humphrey Paget was the designer. In fact, Paget was the designer up until 1951. But there were changes to the front and the reverse. So you've got George Kruger Gray designing the reverse on this one, and come 1947, the silver was taken out completely and switched out for copper nickel. Also, at that same time, you had FIDF and IND IMP across the top, and when you go to look at the 1949-1951 variant, it's only got FIDF. The IND IMP, the Emperor of India aspect, has been removed following India's independence. Now, he died in 1952, as we all know, or should know, if you know your history. Elizabeth II came to the throne, a bit out of the blue for her. Her first florin was 1953, and it bears her famous profile by Mary Gillick, the young head, and the reverse was by Cecil Thomas and Edgar Fuller. It was a joint effort on that one, and that profile and reverse basically stayed the same until 1967. 1968, they did make some florins, but they dated them 1967, and a handful of proofs were made in 1970. But in between that time, in 1967 itself, the new coin came out. The new, come on, focus, the new 10 pence, or 10 new pence. Now, it's the same size as the florin. It's the same size, diameter, thickness, pretty much the same weight as well. It's just a completely different design in readiness for decimal day on the 15th of Feb 1971. So the old florin, whether it be Elizabeth or George before that, or Edward, if they were around in your pocket, they were still currency right up to 1993, along with the big 10p, because they introduced the smaller 10p in 1992. So 30th of June 93, these were demonetized and sent off into the realms of history. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've got a little book that shows mintages, and you can see there that the early ones for Victoria, none minted. Turn the page, you've got images there of the obverse and the reverse, and then over the page again, still with Victoria, you can see each year with the mintage. So I don't know if you want to try taking a screenshot for yourselves. And it just goes on and on and on. So there's quite a few. I mean, for example, the very last ones for Elizabeth, 1967, 22.15 million. And it says there, 1968, any minted, bear the date, 1967. That's the little book. Like I say, have a quick look at one of my earlier videos from a couple of days ago. I have a flick through there, show you what's in there. It's quite a good little book. So, just to give you a quick hands-on, some of my earlier ones, 1921, somewhat worn. And you've got a 1930, not so used. It's a very nice one, this one. I do like this one. So again, this one has, actually no, they're both only 50%, aren't they, thinking about it, because it's 1921. So yeah, both of those are 50%. Now if I compare that 50% with that copper nickel, you can't really see much of a difference, but trust me, I can see that this is very shiny, shall we say. It looks very new in comparison. This is a dull color, this is a shinier metal finish. You can see the difference, the contrast in the metals. So there you have it, a very, very quick run through on the history of the florin. Cheers all.